In the heart of a quiet forest, beneath a sky filled with countless twinkling stars, there lived a gentle little fox with soft orange fur, a fluffy white tail, and bright, curious eyes. Every night, he would curl up beneath the roots of a tall old oak tree, letting the soft sounds of rustling leaves, chirping crickets, and distant owls lull him to sleep. But tonight, something felt a little different. The air was cooler and sweeter, and the wind carried with it a soft, whispering hum that tickled his ears and made him open his sleepy eyes. When he looked up, the full moon was shining brighter than it ever had before, painting the trees and mossy forest floor with a silvery light that shimmered like stardust. As he stepped outside his cozy den, stretching his tiny legs and yawning a wide, quiet yawn, he noticed something magical. Just ahead, winding gently between the trees, was a glowing trail of moonlight. It glimmered faintly, as if inviting him on a secret journey, and without hesitation, Little Fox felt a peaceful tug in his heart and followed. With quiet steps, he padded down the moonlight path, careful not to disturb the resting rabbits curled beneath the bushes, or the squirrels tucked safely in their tree hollows. The forest felt softer than ever before, as if even the trees were dreaming. Little Fox passed under low-hanging branches that swayed gently in the breeze, and tiny fireflies floated all around him like golden lanterns lighting the way. An owl hooted softly from above, not in warning, but like a lullaby just for him. He followed the trail past sleepy ferns, and over a gentle stream that whispered little songs as it flowed. Eventually, the path opened into a quiet clearing where a small pond sat like a mirror, reflecting the sky so clearly that it looked as if the stars had fallen into the water. Little Fox sat by the edge, looking into the still surface, and seeing both his reflection and the glowing moon looking back at him. Then, a graceful white bird with feathers that sparkled like snow drifted down from a nearby tree and landed beside him. "You followed the moonlight well, Little Fox," said the bird gently. "Where does it lead?" asked Little Fox in a quiet voice, not wanting to break the peaceful moment. "It leads to where the heart feels calm, to where dreams begin, and to places only kind and gentle creatures may go," the bird replied. Then the bird began to hum a soft lullaby, one so sweet and slow that it seemed to float through the clearing like a warm breeze. The melody wrapped itself around Little Fox, around the trees, around the pond, and filled everything with stillness. Little Fox yawned again, his eyes growing heavier with each note of the bird's song. The moonlight wrapped around him like a soft, glowing blanket, and the stars above twinkled, as if they were watching over him. He curled up gently on the grass, his head resting on his tail, the pond sparkling beside him, the fireflies dancing slowly above him, and the moon standing guard in the sky. With one last sleepy sigh, Little Fox closed his eyes and let the quiet carry him into a warm, peaceful sleep, where he dreamed of floating clouds, glowing stars, and magical moonlight paths that led to the most wonderful places only found in dreams. And as he slept, the moonlight continued to glow softly across the forest, lighting the path for anyone else gentle enough to follow it, while the forest held its breath and whispered sweet dreams into the night. In a quiet meadow surrounded by soft hills and whispering grasses, there lived a little rabbit with velvety gray fur and long ears that twitched at every sound. He loved his home, a cozy burrow hidden beneath a gentle slope, where daisies swayed in the wind and butterflies danced during the day. But what he loved most of all were the nights when the sky turned deep blue, and the stars slowly peeked out, one by one, twinkling softly like tiny lanterns. One evening, after a peaceful day of hopping through the fields and nibbling on clover, Rabbit lay down on the hilltop, his paws tucked beneath him, and his nose pointed toward the sky. The air was cool, and the breeze carried the scent of lavender and moss. As he gazed up at the stars, something magical began to happen. The sky shimmered gently, and the stars seemed to glow a little brighter, pulsing with light like the rhythm of a quiet song. At first, Rabbit thought it was his imagination, but then he began to hear it, a soft humming, distant and sweet, like the sound of wind through the treetops but warmer, more like a lullaby. The stars were singing. Their voices were not words but melodies that danced across the sky like threads of silver, wrapping the world in stillness and calm. Rabbit's ears twitched in wonder as he listened closely, letting the song drift into his heart. The notes rose and fell like a slow river, and every sound made his breathing deeper and slower, his eyelids heavier, and his thoughts softer. As he lay there, a single shooting star streaked across the sky, leaving behind a trail of golden light, and for a moment, Rabbit felt like the sky was smiling just at him. The song of the stars grew gentler, wrapping around him like a warm blanket, and Rabbit imagined that each star had a voice of its own. Some high like tinkling bells, others low like the purr of a resting breeze. The hills seemed to hum along, and even the flowers leaned slightly toward the sky as if they too were listening. Fireflies rose from the grass, blinking slowly in time with the music, and the whole world felt as if it were rocking slowly back and forth, in perfect harmony. Rabbit yawned, a long soft yawn that stretched his tiny body from nose to tail, and he felt the ground beneath him soften like a pillow. He closed his eyes for a moment, but even then, the star's song continued, playing behind his closed eyelids in little colors and lights. In that moment, Rabbit dreamed, not in the way of chasing butterflies or running through meadows, but in a deeper way, a dreaming that felt like floating, like being carried by the stars themselves on a gentle journey above the trees, over rivers and sleepy towns, through the sky where dreams were made. He felt the stars holding him in their music, cradling him like the moon cradles the night, and all around him was peace. The wind slowed, the fireflies dimmed, and the stars sang softer and softer, until their song was just a whisper, a single note that drifted into silence. Rabbit slept deeply on the hill, his tiny chest rising and falling with quiet breaths, a small smile on his furry face, while the stars watched over him, still glowing, still gently singing for anyone else who might look up and listen. And far across the meadow, the earth whispered lullabies to the trees, the moon glowed silver and round, and all the sleepy creatures of the night curled up, dreaming to the soft song of the stars. In a peaceful forest, where the trees stretched high into the sky, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of pine, lived a tiny squirrel named Nutty. Nutty was small, even for a squirrel, with soft brown fur and bright, curious eyes that sparkled whenever he looked at the world around him. Each day, he would scamper through the forest, jumping from tree to tree, gathering acorns and playing with his friends. But as the days grew shorter and the winds cooler, Nutty found himself wondering about something new, a place he had only heard about in whispers, a place where the clouds lived. What do the clouds feel like? He often wondered. Are they soft like the moss under my paws? Do they float high up like a bird's nest? One morning, as Nutty looked up at the sky, he saw that the clouds were especially thick and fluffy, swirling in soft shades of white and gray. It seemed like the perfect day for an adventure, so Nutty decided it was time to climb higher than ever before. With his little heart full of excitement and his tiny paws twitching with determination, Nutty scurried up his favorite tree, its trunk wide and strong. Up and up he climbed, higher than he ever had, feeling the wind brush against his fur, and the leaves rustle beneath him. As he climbed, the clouds seemed to grow closer and closer, like cotton candy waiting to be touched. When he reached the very top of the tree, Nutty paused for a moment to catch his breath. From there, he could see the whole forest, stretching out in every direction, covered in the colors of autumn. The golden sunlight made the leaves glow like fire, and the distant mountains stood tall and proud in the distance. But the clouds were just above him, swirling like soft pillows of mist. Nutty felt a flutter in his chest as he stretched his little paws upward, reaching for the clouds. With one last jump, he leapt from the top of his tree, feeling the cool breeze rush past him. To his surprise, he didn't fall. Instead, he floated gently upwards, as if the clouds themselves were pulling him up. The air was soft and cool, and Nutty felt as if he were drifting through a dream. The clouds wrapped around him like a cozy blanket, soft and light, their edges shimmering with the colors of the morning sun. Nutty giggled with delight as he tumbled and twirled through the sky, feeling weightless and free. The clouds whispered around him, their voices soft and peaceful, like the lullaby his mother used to sing when he was a tiny kit. Nutty floated higher and higher, spinning in circles, as the wind carried him gently through the sky. He saw birds flying below him, their wings beating steadily as they soared through the air. He saw the forest, his home, growing smaller beneath him, the trees looking like tiny green dots on the earth. Up and up he went, until the clouds were all around him, and Nutty felt like he was part of the sky itself. But soon, as the sky began to darken with the setting sun, Nutty felt a gentle pull, like the clouds were guiding him back down. Slowly and softly, the clouds lowered him, bringing him back to the top of his favorite tree, where his adventure had begun. As Nutty landed back on the branch, he felt the soft rustling of the leaves beneath him and smiled, his tiny heart full of joy. The clouds floated away in the distance, their soft shapes fading into the twilight sky. But Nutty knew he would never forget the gentle climb, the soft clouds, and the feeling of floating through the sky. With a contented yawn, he curled up on his branch, the stars beginning to twinkle above him, and closed his eyes. The night was peaceful and quiet, and Nutty drifted into a deep, restful sleep, dreaming of the soft clouds he had touched and the adventures yet to come. In a quiet valley nestled between tall hills, there flowed a gentle river that wound its way through the meadows, its waters sparkling softly in the moonlight. The river had always been peaceful, its currents slow and steady, as if the water itself was too tired to hurry. It hummed a soft melody as it flowed, a tune so soothing that it felt like the whole world was listening. The river had its own way of singing, a sound that wrapped the land in a blanket of calm, making the trees sway slowly and the flowers nod gently in the breeze. Every night, as the stars began to shine in the sky, the river would whisper its quiet lullaby, calling out to the creatures who lived along its banks. On a hill near the river, there stood an old oak tree where a wise owl made her home. She was a gentle owl, with feathers as soft as dusk and eyes that shone like stars. She had lived many years, watching the river and listening to its song, and each evening, she would settle on her favorite branch and sing her own lullaby to the sleepy river below. Her voice was soft and soothing, like the rustling of leaves in the wind, and it blended perfectly with the river's quiet melody. As the owl sang, the river seemed to slow down even more, as if it was listening to her song and falling into a deeper sleep. The fish in the river would rest in the cool shadows, the ripples fading away, and the water's surface became as smooth as glass. The trees along the riverbanks would bend a little lower, their branches almost touching the water as they swayed in time with the owl's song. Every night, the creatures of the forest gathered quietly around the river, rabbits, deer, and even the little hedgehogs, each one listening to the gentle lullaby that filled the night air. The stars above twinkled softly, adding their own shimmer to the peaceful scene, and the moon cast a gentle light over the world, painting everything in silver. The owl's song was like a gentle breeze that swept through the night, carrying with it a sense of peace and stillness. The animals, lulled by the song, would close their eyes one by one, drifting into the most peaceful sleep. They dreamed of the river, of its slow and steady flow, of the soft ripples that seemed to sing a song of their own. Even the trees seemed to settle into their sleep, their leaves barely moving, as if they too were listening to the owl's song and resting in its gentle embrace. As the night wore on, the owl would continue her song, her voice carrying through the cool night air, soft and steady, until the first light of dawn began to peek over the hills. And as the morning sun started to rise, the river would slowly wake, its gentle current flowing once more, and the animals would stir from their dreams, ready for a new day. But no matter the time of day or night, the river's lullaby and the owl's song would always be there, like a soft, comforting presence that whispered peace into the hearts of all who listened. And as the day turned to night once again, the song would begin anew, a timeless melody that carried the sleepy river and all its creatures into the quiet, restful embrace of the night. In the heart of the quiet woods, where the trees whispered softly in the wind and the stars glimmered brightly in the night sky, there stood a cozy treehouse nestled high among the branches of a tall oak tree. It was a peaceful place, a little home made of warm golden wood, with windows that glowed like little lanterns, casting soft light over the forest below. Inside, the treehouse was a perfect haven for anyone seeking rest. A fluffy rug covered the floor, and the walls were lined with shelves filled with books and small treasures, gathered from the forest floor. A soft bed with quilts made of the softest fabric waited by the window, perfect for drifting off to sleep as the gentle breeze played through the leaves outside. The treehouse was high enough to be safe from the world below, but low enough that it felt close to the hearts of the trees, who stood tall and watchful, their branches stretching out like arms to embrace the little house. It was a place where time seemed to slow down, where everything outside felt far away, and all that mattered was the warmth of the room and the gentle sounds of the forest. Each evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned shades of pink and purple, a family of forest creatures would gather outside the treehouse. The owls would hoot softly from the tall trees, while the rabbits and deer would rest beneath the gentle shadows of the leaves, listening to the peaceful music of the night. The wind would sing a lullaby, rustling through the branches and creating a soft, comforting sound, as if the forest itself was breathing slowly, ready to sleep. Inside the treehouse, a little squirrel named Nutty made himself comfortable, curling up on the soft bed with his favorite blanket. He loved his little treehouse, for it was his sanctuary, a place where he could close his eyes and forget about the day's adventures. As he snuggled beneath the quilts, the soft rustling of the leaves outside lulled him into a peaceful, deep sleep. The stars twinkled above, casting a silver glow through the small window, and the moon smiled down gently, watching over Nutty and his cozy home. The gentle sounds of the forest, from the rustling leaves to the soft chirp of crickets, created a peaceful symphony that drifted through the treehouse, wrapping Nutty in comfort. The treehouse itself seemed to sigh with contentment, its wooden walls settling as the night grew deeper, while the trees swayed in time with the soft breeze. Nutty's dreams were filled with magical adventures. As he wandered through fields of flowers and climbed the tallest trees, his heart light and full of joy. Outside, the quiet woods were still, save for the soft whispers of the trees and the distant sound of an owl calling out to the stars. The little treehouse in the woods was more than just a home. It was a place of safety, a peaceful retreat where all the worries of the world melted away, and the only thing left to do was to sleep and dream. As the night stretched on, Nutty rested peacefully, the gentle night sounds of the forest wrapping around him like a warm, cozy blanket, and the treehouse, nestled high in the oak tree, stood as a beacon of calm and comfort in the heart of the quiet woods. In a peaceful corner of the forest, where the trees whispered soft lullabies and the moonlight filtered through the branches, there was a little hedgehog named Thistle who had a special place he loved to visit, Pillow Hill. It was a quiet hill, covered in soft moss, and surrounded by blooming flowers that filled the air with the sweetest fragrance. The hill was known to be the most peaceful spot in the entire forest, a place where the animals would go when they wanted to find rest and dream the sweetest dreams. Thistle had always heard tales from his friends about the magic of Pillow Hill, where every night, the gentle breeze would sing a soft song that would carry all the tired animals into the most peaceful slumbers. One evening, after a long day of exploring the forest and gathering berries, Thistle felt unusually tired. His little legs were sore from running through the soft grass, and his small heart yearned for the comfort of Pillow Hill. He decided that tonight, he would make the journey to the hill and see for himself if the stories were true. With a soft sigh, he tucked a tiny satchel of berries into his little pouch and set off toward the hill, his tiny feet pattering softly on the forest floor. The path to Pillow Hill was winding and gentle, with tall trees on either side, their leaves rustling like a soft lullaby in the cool night air. As Thistle walked, he noticed the stars twinkling above him, their light shimmering like 1,000 little dreams. The forest around him felt magical, and the deeper he walked, the more peaceful the world seemed to become. Eventually, after a quiet walk through the woods, Thistle reached the base of Pillow Hill. As he began to climb the soft slope, he could feel the coolness of the moss beneath his paws, and he noticed that the air felt warmer, as though the hill itself was offering him a gentle embrace. When he reached the top, he found a small, cozy spot in the soft grass where a cluster of flowers bloomed gently around him. He curled up into a little ball, his spines tucked neatly against his body, and closed his eyes. As he lay there, the gentle breeze began to swirl around him, carrying with it the softest melody. It was the song of Pillow Hill, a lullaby sung by the wind and the flowers, a sound that made his heart feel light and his body relax. The song was so soothing that Thistle could feel his tiny worries melting away, and soon, he drifted into a peaceful sleep. In his dreams, he floated through fields of stars and danced with the moonbeams, his little heart light with happiness. The breeze on Pillow Hill seemed to wrap around him like a soft blanket, keeping him warm and safe as he dreamed of new adventures and magical lands. As the night stretched on, the forest remained still, save for the soft rustling of the leaves and the gentle sigh of the breeze. Pillow Hill stood silently in the moonlight, a peaceful haven for all who sought rest. The next morning, when the first light of dawn peeked through the trees, Thistle woke up feeling rested and refreshed. He yawned softly and stretched his little paws, looking around at the beautiful view from the top of the hill. The flowers had closed their petals for the night, but the gentle scent still lingered in the air, and the warmth of the sun began to touch the hill. Thistle smiled, knowing that he had found the secret of Pillow Hill, a place of peace, rest, and dreams, where one could always come to feel calm and at ease. With a contented sigh, he made his way back home, carrying with him the memory of the hill's soft lullaby, and the knowledge that whenever he needed rest, he could always return to Pillow Hill. And so, every time Thistle felt tired or needed a quiet moment, he would make his way back to Pillow Hill, where the breeze would sing its sweet lullaby, and he would find the peace of dreams once again. One quiet evening, as the stars began to twinkle softly in the sky, and the moon cast a silver glow across the world, a little bunny named Milo lay in his cozy bed, staring up at the ceiling and wishing he could visit the land of dreams. He had heard tales of a magical train that flew through the night sky, taking those who were ready for sleep on a wonderful journey to a place full of dreams. The dream train, they said, appeared only when the moon was high and the world was calm, its engine humming gently like the whisper of the wind, and its carriages sparkling with starlight. Milo closed his eyes, his little heart full of wonder, and wished with all his might that he could see the train for himself. As if by magic, he felt a soft breeze drift through his window, and when he opened his eyes, there it was, a magnificent train, glowing with soft, warm light, hovering just outside his window. The dream train was real. Its carriages shimmered in all the colors of the night, silver, blue, and violet, like a moving constellation. The train's gentle whistle echoed through the air, a soft, comforting sound that invited Milo to join the adventure. Without a moment's hesitation, Milo hopped out of bed, his tiny paws barely making a sound on the floor, and he tiptoed to the window. The train's door opened with a soft creak, and a kind, smiling conductor waved him inside. "Welcome aboard, young dreamer," the conductor said in a voice as gentle as the breeze. Milo's eyes sparkled with excitement as he climbed aboard the dream train. The seats were soft and plush, and the windows showed nothing but the night sky, filled with twinkling stars and drifting clouds. As the train began to move, it soared higher and higher into the sky, leaving the world below far behind. Milo watched in awe as the ground grew smaller, the trees and houses becoming tiny dots below. The train flew past the sparkling stars, racing through the soft clouds, and the air was filled with a peaceful, magical hum that made Milo feel safe and content. As the train traveled through the night, the conductor told Milo stories of the land they were heading to, a place called Dreamland, where all the dreams of the world were made. In Dreamland, the conductor explained, there are fields of clouds, forests made of sparkling stardust, and rivers that sing lullabies to the creatures that visit. It's a place where anything is possible, and every dream is a story waiting to be told. Milo's eyes grew heavy with sleep as the train glided smoothly through the night sky. The gentle rocking of the train, combined with the soft lullabies of the wind, made him feel as though he was floating on a cloud. Soon, the dream train reached its destination, a land so beautiful that it took Milo's breath away. The sky was painted with soft shades of purple and gold, and the stars danced in the sky like tiny fireflies. The air smelled like fresh flowers, and the ground beneath his feet was soft as cotton. Milo stepped off the train, his paws sinking gently into the ground, and he saw that Dreamland was full of friendly creatures, bears, rabbits, foxes, and even owls, each quietly dreaming, their eyes closed in peaceful slumber. Everywhere he looked, there were fields of sparkling clouds and trees with leaves that shimmered like diamonds. Milo wandered through the dream-filled landscape, feeling peaceful and happy, knowing that he was in a place where dreams were made. As the night wore on, the dream train gently called Milo back, its soft whistle inviting him to return. He climbed aboard once more, feeling the warmth and comfort of the train's soft seats. The conductor smiled at him again, and the train began its slow journey back to the world below. Milo closed his eyes, feeling the train rock him gently as it sailed through the sky. When the train finally touched down outside his window, he woke up to find himself back in his cozy bed. The stars were still shining outside, and the moon was softly glowing, but the dream train had vanished, leaving only the peaceful feeling of adventure in its wake. Milo smiled, knowing that whenever he needed to, he could close his eyes, and the dream train would be waiting to take him back to Dreamland, where the stars were always shining, and the dreams were always waiting. One warm and peaceful evening, as the sun was setting and the sky turned soft shades of pink and gold, a little kitten named Luna curled up in her cozy basket near the window, gazing out at the horizon. She had always wondered what lay beyond the soft hills and sparkling streams that surrounded her home. And most of all, she had heard stories of a magical garden that floated high above the ground, surrounded by fluffy clouds. The garden, they said, was a place where flowers bloomed all year round, their petals shining with the colors of the rainbow, and where the air smelled of sweet nectar and warm sunshine. Luna closed her eyes, wishing more than anything to visit this floating garden, and as if by magic, a soft breeze swept through her window, carrying with it the scent of fresh blossoms. When she opened her eyes again, she could hardly believe what she saw: a beautiful garden, floating right outside her window, high above the ground, surrounded by soft, fluffy clouds. The garden was even more beautiful than Luna had imagined. There were vibrant flowers in every color of the rainbow, their petals glowing in the soft light of the setting sun. There were trees with leaves that shimmered like stars, and small birds flew around, singing songs that filled the air with joy. Luna's heart raced with excitement, and before she knew it, she was standing at the edge of the garden, looking down at the world below. A gentle voice interrupted her thoughts. "Would you like to come explore?" Luna turned around and saw a friendly rabbit standing beside her, its fur soft and white like the clouds. The rabbit smiled kindly, its eyes twinkling with warmth. "I'm Thistle," said the rabbit. "I take care of the floating garden. It's a peaceful place, but there's so much to see and do here. Would you like to join me on an adventure?" Luna nodded eagerly, her little tail twitching with excitement. Thistle led her through the garden, pointing out the most beautiful flowers, each one more vibrant than the last. "These flowers only bloom in the clouds," Thistle explained. "They thrive on the soft winds and the light of the stars." Luna marveled at the delicate petals, which seemed to shimmer and change colors as the light shifted. They wandered deeper into the garden, and Luna saw that there were little ponds filled with sparkling water, where the fish swam in the most graceful patterns, creating ripples that sparkled like diamonds. The garden seemed to be alive, humming with a soft, magical energy that made Luna feel as though she were floating herself. Thistle then led Luna to a tree with golden fruit hanging from its branches. "These are dream fruit," Thistle said. "Eating one will bring you peaceful dreams, ones full of stars and calm skies." Luna took a small golden fruit and took a bite. As she chewed, she felt a wave of calm wash over her, her eyelids growing heavy. She knew it was time to rest. Thistle smiled at her and whispered, "Come, little one, let's find a place to sleep." They walked through the garden, finding a soft bed of clouds, where Luna curled up under the gentle, glowing branches of a tree. The clouds felt like the softest pillows, and the warmth of the flowers around her made her feel safe and cozy. As she closed her eyes, she felt as though the whole garden was gently rocking her to sleep. The stars began to twinkle above, and Luna dreamed of floating among the clouds, dancing with the stars and playing with the soft petals of the flowers. She dreamed of the gentle breeze, the sweet scent of the blossoms, and the peaceful feeling that surrounded her. It was a dream of warmth, comfort, and magic, and when Luna awoke, she found herself back in her cozy basket, the first light of dawn just beginning to peek through her window. The floating garden had disappeared, but Luna smiled, knowing that she could always visit it again in her dreams, where the flowers bloomed forever, and the sky was always full of stars. As she settled back down to sleep, her heart was full of happiness, knowing that in the magical world of dreams, the floating garden would always be waiting for her. In the heart of the forest, There was a calm and peaceful meadow where the tall, soft grass swayed gently in the breeze, and wildflowers painted the ground with splashes of purple, yellow, and blue. It was the perfect place for rest, a place where time seemed to slow down, and the air was always filled with the scent of sweet blossoms and fresh earth. In the middle of the meadow, there was a large, gentle bear named Bruno, who had lived there for many years. Bruno was known for his peaceful nature and love for napping under the warm sun. Every afternoon, he would wander into the meadow, find a soft patch of grass, and curl up for a long, cozy nap. The birds would sing their sweet lullabies from the trees, and the little animals would quietly scamper about, not disturbing Bruno's peaceful rest. One warm, sunny day, as Bruno settled into his favorite spot beneath a large oak tree, he noticed a small rabbit named Lily hopping through the meadow, her long ears twitching as she explored. Lily had heard about the calm meadow where the bears nap, and she was curious to see what made it so special. She hopped closer to Bruno, who was already drifting into a peaceful slumber. "Hello, Mr. Bear," Lily whispered softly, not wanting to disturb him too much. Bruno's eyes opened lazily, and he gave a slow, warm smile. "Hello, little one," he rumbled in his deep, gentle voice. "Welcome to the calm meadow. It's a good place to rest and feel the peace of the world." Lily's nose twitched, and she sat down beside Bruno, enjoying the warmth of the sun on her fur. "This place is so quiet and beautiful," she said in awe. "I've never seen a meadow like it before." Bruno nodded, his eyes closing again, as the warmth of the sun filled him with comfort. "Yes, it's a special place. Here, the earth seems to know how to make everything feel calm. The breeze, the flowers, even the trees. They all help us rest." Lily watched as the leaves of the oak tree danced gently in the wind, and the soft hum of bees flew from flower to flower. She could feel her body relaxing with each passing moment. "Would you like to nap too, little one?" Bruno asked, his voice soft and sleepy. Lily thought for a moment. She had never napped in the meadow before, and the thought of resting in such a peaceful place was very inviting. She nodded and found a soft patch of grass next to Bruno, curling up into a small ball. The grass felt so soft beneath her, and the warm sunlight made her feel safe and cozy. Soon, Lily's eyes grew heavy and she too drifted off into a peaceful sleep. The meadow was so calm that even the sounds of the world seemed to soften. The rustling of the trees was like a gentle lullaby, and the birds' songs were like whispers in the distance. As Bruno and Lily slept, a gentle breeze passed over the meadow, carrying the scent of wildflowers and fresh grass. It was a lullaby of the earth, one that made every living creature feel safe and content. The day passed slowly, the sunlight shifting as the shadows grew longer. In the distance, the mountains stood tall and silent, their peaks touching the sky. But in the meadow, time felt as if it stood still. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Bruno stirred from his nap, stretching his big paws and yawning deeply. Lily blinked her eyes open and stretched as well, feeling refreshed and happy. "Thank you for sharing this beautiful place with me, Mr. Bear," she said with a smile. Bruno smiled back, his eyes twinkling in the fading light. "You are always welcome here, little one. The meadow is for anyone who seeks peace." With a soft wave of her paw, Lily hopped away, feeling calm and content, as if the meadow had left a piece of its tranquility in her heart. Bruno watched her go, then laid back down in the soft grass, ready for another peaceful nap as the stars began to twinkle above. The calm meadow, where bears nap and the world feels still, would always be a place of rest and peace, where the worries of the world could not reach. In the heart of a quiet forest, where the moonlight gently poured through the leaves like silver rain, and the stars twinkled softly in the velvet sky, a little fawn named Fern stood at the edge of the meadow, listening to the gentle hush of the night. Fern had soft brown fur, big curious eyes, and tiny hooves that barely made a sound on the forest floor. She was a young fawn, full of wonder and dreams, and she loved nighttime more than any other time of day. The sun had dipped behind the hills, and the sky had turned a deep blue, filled with stars that sparkled like tiny lamps above. Fern stepped out into the moonlit clearing, where the grass was cool and damp beneath her feet, and the air was filled with the sounds of crickets singing and leaves rustling ever so gently. She looked around, her ears twitching, for she thought she had heard something. a soft whisper, like the breeze calling her name. Fern. It seemed to say, so light and kind, like a lullaby floating through the air. She blinked slowly and followed the sound, her steps calm and careful, her heart peaceful. The forest at night was magical, not scary or loud, but soothing and full of secrets. The trees stood tall like sleepy guardians, and the wind moved gently through the branches, brushing the leaves like a lullaby sung by nature itself. "Don't be afraid," whispered the night. "Just walk with me." So Fern walked, deeper into the woods, where the moonlight painted silver paths between the trees. Along the way, fireflies danced around her like glowing dreams, and the soft call of an owl echoed in the distance. Fern felt calm, as if the world had slowed down just for her. A gentle breeze kissed her fur and told her stories of the stars, of ancient trees, and of peaceful dreams. She walked until she found a soft patch of moss beneath an old willow tree that swayed ever so slightly, its long branches like curtains keeping the world quiet. Fern curled up in the moss, her body warm and sleepy. The night kept whispering gently in her ears, telling her that she was safe, loved and watched over. High above, the stars blinked like little eyes keeping her company, and the moon smiled down with a soft silver glow. The forest was quiet now, with only the sounds of the wind, the owls, and the faint hum of dreams being woven. Fern yawned, her eyes fluttering shut, and as she drifted into sleep, she felt the night wrapping around her like a soft blanket, its whispers now part of her dreams. In that quiet forest, where the night had a voice and the trees stood like lullaby singers, little Fern slept peacefully, knowing that the world was full of gentle magic for those who listened. The night kept watch, whispering soft secrets to the sleeping leaves and the tiny fawn, promising that morning would come gently, and dreams would always return when the stars sang once more. In a quiet forest tucked far away from busy roads and bright city lights, the sleepy wind began its gentle journey through the resting trees, brushing softly against their branches, as if humming a lullaby only the woods could hear. It was the kind of wind that didn't rush or roar, but whispered, slow and kind, like a friend telling stories at the end of a long, calm day. The trees, tall and wise with years of quiet watching, listened without speaking, their leaves rustling lightly, swaying ever so gently as if nodding in agreement with every soft breath of the breeze. High above, the sky was painted in soft shades of purple and silver as twilight settled in, and the first stars began to twinkle, peeking out shyly from behind drifting clouds. The sleepy wind glided through pine branches, weaving between trunks and curling over the mossy ground where small animals were already tucked into their beds. Squirrels curled in nests, rabbits nestled in their burrows, and tiny owlets resting in tree hollows, their feathers puffed up in cozy bundles. Everything seemed to be slowing down, getting ready for dreams. The wind carried the scent of pine needles and warm earth, wrapping the forest in a feeling of peace, like a big invisible blanket of comfort. In one quiet corner of the forest, an old oak tree stood with its arms wide open, ready to catch the final rays of moonlight, and as the wind passed through its branches, the tree gave a soft creak, like a sleepy yawn. All around, the forest seemed to sigh in contentment, the flowers gently closing their petals, and the grasses bowing low in restful stillness. Even the stream nearby seemed to hush its bubbling song, slowing into a soft trickle, as if listening to the wind's soothing hum. The wind didn't want to wake anyone. It only wanted to help them drift, to carry dreams on its back, floating them up and down the sleeping woods like tiny glowing feathers. It circled a resting fox, curled into a warm ball under a fern, and gently rocked the branch where a mother bird covered her chicks with a wing. The resting trees, strong and silent, held their breath as the wind moved between them, like a lullaby being shared among old friends, calm and full of trust. Everything was still, not because nothing was happening, but because everything that mattered was happening quietly. The hush of rest, the music of sleep, the peace of the night. And as the wind continued its slow, loving path, it carried the soft murmur of dreams. Dreams of sunny fields, of gentle rain, of endless skies and happy tomorrows. The trees stood tall, rooted in silence, watching over every living thing beneath their leaves, guarding the peaceful dreams that floated with the wind. And the wind, in return, promised to come back each night, slow and gentle, to sing its sleepy songs again, brushing through the resting trees, and helping the whole forest fall into deep sweet sleep, where no one was alone, and everything was soft, safe, and perfectly still under the velvet night sky. At the heart of a quiet valley where silver mist danced above soft grass, and the stars shimmered gently in the lake's surface, there lived a gentle swan in a place known to the woodland creatures as Moon Lake, a round, peaceful body of water that mirrored the moon so clearly it looked like the sky had come down to sleep upon the earth. The swan, with feathers as white as morning clouds and eyes full of calm, glided across the lake without a sound, as if carried by dreams themselves, and every evening, as the golden sun tucked itself behind the hills and the twilight wrapped the trees in a blanket of dusky blue, the gentle swan began her nightly ritual. Moving slowly, gracefully, she circled the lake's edge, her soft ripples spreading like lullabies, telling the reeds and lilies that it was time to rest. The fireflies blinked in rhythm with her motion, lighting her path in little golden flickers, while frogs gave one last croak before settling beneath cool stones, and dragonflies folded their wings to sleep. Up in the willow trees that leaned lovingly over the water, small birds rustled into their nests, soothed by the whispering breeze and the calm presence of the swan below. And in burrows and dens nearby, the animals of Moon Lake watched from their cozy places, feeling the stillness settle gently into their hearts as they listened to the soft swan song that wasn't made of notes or words, but of quiet movement, gentle energy, and the comfort of knowing she would always be there when the moon returned. Above them, the moon climbed higher, casting silver light across the lake and lighting up the swan like a glowing cloud afloat on glass. And in that moment, time itself seemed to pause. No rush, no worry, just the quiet hush of nighttime peace. The swan never hurried, always calm, glided to the very center of the lake, where the moon's reflection was clearest, and there she settled, tucking her head beneath one wing, floating as still as a dream come to life. The lake grew even quieter, if such a thing were possible, and even the breeze lowered its voice, moving gently through the trees as if to say goodnight. Far above, stars blinked in sleepy rhythm, and every creature, from the smallest mouse in its hole to the sleepy fox curled under a fern, drifted into slumber, hearts filled with the comfort of the gentle swan's presence. Moon Lake was more than just a lake. It was a place where peace lived, where silence was soft, and where the swan's nightly journey reminded all who saw her that calmness could be beautiful, and gentleness could light the whole night. And so, under the watchful moon and the endless sky, the gentle swan of Moon Lake slept, and the whole valley, wrapped in her quiet magic, slept with her, safe and still in the arms of the night. Beneath the soft glow of a sky sprinkled with stars, in a quiet meadow wrapped in the arms of night, a tiny snail named Silas began his slow and peaceful journey home, his shell glistening with dew and reflecting the twinkling sky like a tiny mirror carried on his back. The grass gently brushed his sides as he slid along a winding path lined with sleeping daisies and half-closed clover leaves, and the world around him seemed to hold its breath, moving as slowly and quietly as he did, respecting the rhythm of his calm and patient steps. The moon above cast a silver shimmer across the meadow, lighting a soft trail ahead just for him, and Silas followed it not with hurry, but with contentment, knowing that each inch brought him closer to the cozy spot under the old oak tree where he made his home. On his way, he passed a small family of mice curled up in a nest of leaves, a hedgehog dozing in a patch of moss, and a sleepy butterfly gently rocking on a tall blade of grass, all wrapped in dreams and comfort, and all unknowingly cheering him on with their peaceful presence. High in the sky, a shooting star traced a glowing line, and Silas paused to admire it, whispering a quiet thank you to the night for making his journey so beautiful. A soft breeze kissed the tops of the flowers and bent the grass ever so slightly, and Silas felt like the entire world was gently guiding him home, encouraging him with every rustle and every hush. Above him, the stars blinked like old friends, watching over his trail, and their quiet sparkle filled his tiny heart with warmth and wonder. Though the journey was long and his pace was slow, Silas never minded, for every moment brought something lovely, a glimmer of moonlight on a petal, the far-off hoot of an owl, or the cool touch of nighttime air on his face. And all these little things made the walk feel like a dream unfolding step by step. As he finally reached the base of the oak tree, his special corner lined with soft moss and tiny, Pebbles, he let out a gentle sigh, curling into the comfort of his shell as the stars continued to twinkle above. In the quiet of that sacred space, wrapped in starlight and the stillness of the world, Silas closed his eyes, letting the soft hum of the night lull him to sleep. And as he drifted off, the sky seemed to lean down just a little, wrapping him in a blanket of peace, knowing that even the smallest journey can be filled with wonder when taken with a quiet heart and a sky full of stars. Deep in the heart of the peaceful forest, where the trees whispered lullabies and fireflies danced in the air, the animals were preparing for their most magical night of the year, the Lantern Festival, a quiet and beautiful tradition where every creature, big and small, lit a glowing lantern and followed a winding path beneath the stars, not to celebrate loudly, but to honor the gentle peace of the forest and the joy of being together. Soft moss blanketed the ground, and tiny lights flickered between the trees as the hedgehogs lit their acorn shell lanterns. The squirrels carried glowing berries in leaf baskets, and the owls hung warm, twinkling orbs high in the branches, each one adding a soft shimmer to the night sky. Little Deer, wearing a crown of silver fern and carrying a glowing lantern made from a hollowed-out apple, walked beside his best friend, Rabbit, who held a tiny jar filled with glowworms, and together they followed the soft trail of lights through the woods, their paws making no sound on the gentle path, their eyes wide with wonder. High above, the moon shone softly, smiling down at the forest, while the stars twinkled as if clapping quietly for the beauty below, and the wind sang a barely heard melody through the leaves, a lullaby only the trees and the sleepy animals could understand. As they walked, they passed beaver and otter floating lanterns made of bark down the slow-moving river, their reflections dancing like dreams on the surface, and the fireflies above seemed to follow, flickering softly as if echoing the calm joy of the evening. Near the center of the forest, the animals gathered in a wide, open glade where a great stump served as the heart of the celebration, and each one gently placed their lantern around it, forming a glowing circle of golden light, like stars fallen to the earth. No one spoke loudly, no music played, and yet it was the most joyful celebration, filled with warmth, soft smiles, and the feeling that everyone belonged to something calm and kind. Even the quietest creatures, shy moles, sleepy bats, and fluttering moths, joined the circle, their lanterns small but just as lovely, and together they all sat in silence, watching the lights flicker and feeling the gentle pull of rest begin to wrap around them. One by one the lanterns dimmed, not because their light was gone, but because the time for dreams had come, and slowly, each animal curled beside a friend, or nestled into a soft patch of moss or leaf bed, their breathing even, their hearts light, and their dreams beginning to bloom like the soft lights of the lanterns they carried. Little Deer yawned and rested his head on Rabbit's shoulder, and Rabbit snuggled into the grass, their lanterns beside them glowing faintly like a whisper of moonlight, and above them, the stars blinked gently, as if saying good night. The forest became quiet, filled only with the hush of sleep, the hum of peace, and the gentle warmth of a night that held everyone close in its arms. And so, the Lantern Festival ended not with a bang, but with a whisper, as every creature drifted into dreams beneath a sky full of silent stars and glowing memories. One warm summer night in a quiet meadow far beyond the busy world, the sky began to darken gently, painting soft shades of blue and violet across the heavens as the sun dipped behind the hills, and the breeze whispered through tall grasses like a lullaby meant only for those who listen with sleepy hearts. In that peaceful place lived a young fox named Luma, whose curious eyes always searched the sky for something magical. And on this special night, she sat at the edge of her den, watching as the first stars began to twinkle far above, and a hush spread across the meadow, wrapping everything in a blanket of stillness. Luma had heard stories from the elder animals, tales of nights when the sky would come alive not just with stars, but with tiny glowing lights that danced like living sparks, lighting up the meadow with wonder. And though she had never seen it for herself, she believed, deep in her heart, that tonight might be one of those nights. The crickets sang softly as the moon rose slow and round, casting a silvery glow over the wildflowers. And just when Luma thought the night couldn't feel more magical, a single golden light blinked above the grass, then another, and another, until dozens, then hundreds, of fireflies began to appear. floating gently through the air like drifting stars. Her eyes widened in awe as the sky near the ground shimmered with their tiny lights, as if the stars had come down to play. And Luma stepped carefully through the meadow, her soft paws silent on the earth, watching as the fireflies swirled around her in glowing patterns, some landing gently on petals, others floating high into the trees where owls blinked sleepily from their branches. The whole meadow was alive with this quiet light, not loud or sharp, but calm and gentle, just enough to guide a sleepy heart toward dreams. Even the smallest creatures, mice, frogs, and sleepy birds, peeked out to watch the fireflies glow, their eyes full of quiet joy. And Luma felt something warm inside her, a peace that spread from her chest to the tip of her tail. She lay down on a patch of soft moss, letting the lights drift above her like a moving sky, and the world felt safe, calm, and full of wonder, the kind that doesn't shout but whispers kindly until your eyes grow heavy and your breath begins to slow. The fireflies blinked their slow rhythm, like a lullaby made of light, and Luma blinked slowly, her gaze fixed on the gentle glow around her, until her eyelids drooped and her body relaxed into the earth, the warmth of the moment wrapping around her like a soft blanket. In her dreams, the fireflies danced even higher, filling the sky with soft sparkles, and the stars above twinkled back at them like old friends meeting once more. The meadow stayed quiet through the night, and the fireflies flickered gently until the first hint of dawn touched the sky, their lights fading with the stars, but leaving behind a hush of peace, a soft memory that would stay with Luma, even as she slept soundly through the rest of the night. And so, under the silent sky and the watchful moon, Luma and the other creatures of the meadow drifted into dreams lit not by noise or fear, but by the softest glowing wonder, when fireflies lit up the sky. In a quiet corner of the world, far away from rushing cars and loud cities, there was a tiny peaceful village known as Turtle Town, nestled gently between rolling green hills and a calm, shimmering lake where the moon liked to visit each night. The town was home to turtles of all ages, tiny hatchlings who played in the morning sun, and wise old turtles who told soft bedtime tales under the stars. And each night, as the sun dipped behind the hills and the sky turned a soft purple, a beautiful hush would fall over the town like a loving whisper. The turtles knew when this hush came, it meant the blanket of dreams was getting ready to arrive. And it wasn't a real blanket made of fabric or thread, but something even more magical, a warm, invisible feeling that covered the entire town, wrapping every shell, leaf, and pebble in calmness. Little Tycho, the youngest turtle, would always be the first to look up at the sky from his cozy leaf bed, waiting patiently as the stars began to twinkle and the moon glowed brighter, and soon he'd feel it, that gentle wave of sleepiness drifting down like a breeze full of lullabies and peaceful wishes. The trees around Turtle Town swayed softly, as if they were singing a silent song, and the crickets hummed in a slow, soothing rhythm, blending with the quiet splashes from the lake, where a few sleepy frogs said their goodnights. Fireflies blinked softly over the water, and the soft glow of their tiny lights added to the dreamlike feeling that blanketed the town. Even the clouds above seemed to slow down, drifting lazily across the sky like fluffy boats floating toward the stars. Tycho's mother would gently tuck a soft mossy leaf over him, but he hardly noticed, already drifting into dreams of floating on lily pads, visiting the stars, and gliding peacefully through silver waters that led to magical lands. In every little home of Turtle Town, beneath stones, inside tiny huts made of twigs and flowers, and under the big willow tree, each turtle felt the same dreamy warmth as the night stretched on. The blanket of dreams made the world feel safe and soft, like nothing bad could ever find its way there, only sweet thoughts and silent wishes. Even the owls in the trees blinked slowly, their feathers ruffled by the calm night air, as they watched over the sleeping town like gentle guardians of peace. And while the stars above twinkled like sleepy eyes watching over them, the entire village of Turtle Town rested deeply, surrounded by quiet magic, and drifted together into a night filled with the gentlest dreams, where turtles danced on moonbeams and lakes turned into sleepy skies, and nothing ever rushed or worried, just the slow, soft rhythm of peace that only night could bring, under the beautiful, silent cover of the blanket of dreams over Turtle Town. As the golden sun dipped behind the hills and painted the sky in soft hues of lavender and rose, A young deer named Luma stood at the edge of the quiet dream forest, her tiny hooves barely making a sound on the mossy ground as she took her first slow steps into the nighttime woods, where everything glowed with a gentle shimmer, as if touched by moonlight itself. The trees stood tall and kind, their leaves whispering sleepy lullabies as the breeze passed through them, and the forest floor soft and damp seemed to welcome Luma with each step, guiding her deeper into a world where dreams floated like feathers in the air. Above her, stars peeked through the branches, blinking slowly like tired eyes ready for rest, and far off, the sound of a babbling brook played a soft tune, like a lullaby made just for her. Luma walked carefully, her big eyes full of wonder but growing heavier with each step, and around her, glowing mushrooms lit her path with a faint warm light while tiny moths fluttered lazily through the air like sleepy dancers. An owl perched high above let out a gentle hoot, not to startle her, but as a way to say goodnight, and fireflies began to light up like tiny lanterns all around, blinking slowly in rhythm with the peaceful forest heartbeat. Every step Luma took brought her closer to a soft meadow nestled deep within the trees, where the grass felt like a blanket and the flowers closed their petals for the night. A soft mist began to rise from the ground, swirling slowly around her legs like a tender hug, and the air smelled sweet, like pine and moonflowers, with a hint of dream dust. Luma found a cozy spot beside a rock that still held the warmth of the day's sun, and as she curled up, the stars above twinkled more brightly, casting a silver glow over her soft brown fur. The dream forest seemed to sigh gently, as if it too were settling in for sleep, and in that moment all sounds, rustling leaves, the distant stream, even the night breeze, blended into one quiet lullaby just for her. Luma blinked slowly, her eyes now heavy, her breath deep and calm, and she thought of floating clouds and flying among stars, of playing with other forest friends in magical places made of moonlight and quiet joy. The dream forest wrapped itself around her, not with arms, but with peace, stillness, and the deep comfort of knowing she was safe, loved, and exactly where she was meant to be. And as her eyes finally closed, the forest held her in a gentle silence, welcoming her softly into the world of dreams, where every step she had taken led her to rest, surrounded by the warm, sleepy magic of the night. High in a land where the sky touched the earth and clouds floated lazily around tall snowy peaks, there was a quiet mountain range that hummed softly each night, a gentle lullaby only the stars and sleepy creatures could hear. And nestled between two silver-capped mountains lived a small goat named Tula, whose fur was as soft as fresh snow, and whose eyes sparkled with wonder at the magical world around her. As the day faded into twilight, and the sun dipped behind the peaks, painting the sky in swirls of peach and pale violet, Tula climbed up the grassy slope to her favorite ledge, where the wind always carried the mountain's song. It wasn't a loud song, not the kind you sing with your voice, but a deep, peaceful hum that seemed to rise from the stones, the trees, and the valleys below, as if the mountains themselves were breathing in time with the stars above. The trees swayed slowly, their leaves rustling in harmony with the tune, and tiny alpine flowers closed their petals for the night, curling gently as if listening too. Nearby, a sleepy marmot yawned, curling into a ball beside a rock warmed by the day's sunlight, while owls blinked drowsily from their nests high in the pines, their feathers ruffling with the cool mountain breeze. Tula felt the soft hum vibrating through her hooves, deep and low and steady, like a whispering giant cradling the whole world in a bedtime song. And as she lay down on a patch of moss, the stars began to peek out one by one, blinking sleepily as if joining the lullaby with their quiet shimmer. Moonlight poured down like silver rain, casting a gentle glow over the slopes, and far away, a stream sang its own quiet tune as it trickled over smooth stones, blending its sound with the hum of the mountains, like a tiny harp strumming along with a deep, slow drum. Tula closed her eyes, her breath slowing, her thoughts drifting gently like clouds over the peaks, and she imagined herself floating over the valley through skies filled with glowing stars and dreams made of mist and music. The mountain's lullaby wrapped around her like a warm blanket, its notes soft and steady, reminding her she was safe, she was home, and the night was full of peace. Even the wind seemed to hush its voice, tiptoeing gently past sleeping trees and silent slopes, letting the song of the mountains be the only sound. a lullaby born from stone and sky and stillness. And as Tula finally drifted into sleep, the mountains kept humming there, voices low and kind, carrying her and all the other sleepy hearts into a night where dreams floated gently, carried by the song of the earth itself. High above the fields and forests, where birds glide and the sky stretches far and wide, there was a little cloud named Nilo who had been floating all day long, drifting with the wind and playing hide-and-seek with the sun, casting soft shadows over sleepy villages and shimmering lakes. But now, as evening settled in and the horizon turned golden, Nilo felt something he had never felt before. He was sleepy, not the kind of sleepy that comes from boredom or waiting, but the kind that tugs gently at your fluff and makes your edges feel soft and slow, like a warm hug pulling you into stillness. And so Nilo looked around for a quiet place to rest, floating past tall mountains and over gentle hills. But each time he paused, the wind would give him a little nudge, playful as ever, saying, "Not yet, little one, keep moving," until Nilo finally whispered back, "But I'm so very tired, and I just want to sleep." Hearing this, the stars that were beginning to twinkle high above blinked softly in surprise, for clouds usually danced all night, painting shapes across the moon and chasing breezes for fun. And curious, the moon peeked out from behind a veil of mist, lighting up Nilo's sleepy puff with a silvery glow, and asked gently, "Why do you want to rest, dear cloud?" To which Nilo sighed, "Because I've given shade and rain and drifted far, and now all I want is a quiet place to dream." And the moon, touched by the little cloud's honest words, smiled and said, "Then tonight, you shall have it." Just then the wind calmed its games, the stars blinked more softly, and a hush spread across the sky as if the whole night had decided to let Nilo sleep. Slowly, he floated down over a meadow where soft grasses swayed in the breeze and fireflies blinked like tiny lanterns. And there, above a field of dreaming flowers, Nilo stopped, curled into himself like a fluffy pillow, and let his puffiness sink into stillness. The earth below quieted, the animals whispered goodnight, and the sky held its breath in kindness, letting the tired little cloud rest at last. And as Nilo drifted into the softest sleep, he dreamed not of wind and rain and sun, but of soft lullabies made of stardust and moonlight, and of skies where clouds like him could rest side by side, floating gently in a sea of dreams. And so the night passed quietly, with no storms or sudden winds, only the hush of peace and the slow, steady breathing of a sky that had wrapped one of its own in a blanket of stillness. And as dawn approached, and the sky turned from dark blue to pale pink, Nilo remained curled in sleep, smiling in his dreams, and the sun, seeing him resting so peacefully, chose to rise a little slower that morning, so the sleepy cloud could dream just a little longer. On a cold winter afternoon, as snowflakes danced softly from the sky, covering the forest with a blanket of white, the woodland friends gathered in their cozy little den, nestled beneath a large oak tree, where the crackling of the fire filled the air with warmth and comfort. The trees outside were bare, their branches heavy with snow, and the ground was a soft carpet of fluffy white. But inside, the air smelled of pine and cinnamon, and the firelight flickered gently, casting shadows that seemed to dance along with the falling snow. The forest was quiet, save for the occasional whisper of the wind, which sounded like a lullaby, urging everyone to rest. Little Rabbit, with his soft white fur, yawned and stretched out on a pile of leaves, curling up into a tiny ball, his nose twitching with the sweet scent of the air. Next to him, Squirrel, with her fluffy tail wrapped around her paws, closed her eyes, her mind drifting into a peaceful dream, while Hedgehog, ever so slow and steady, curled up in the corner, his prickly spine softened by a blanket of moss. Overhead, Owl perched on a low branch, his large, amber eyes blinking slowly as he watched over his friends, his feathers puffed up for warmth, and his hoot as soft as the wind itself. Fox, with his orange fur now turned to a deep shade of red in the firelight, snuggled into the corner with his tail wrapped around himself, feeling safe and warm. The air was calm, and the forest outside seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for the peaceful night to fall. Snowflakes continued to drift gently to the ground, landing softly on the earth below, while inside, the woodland friends were all wrapped in the comfort of friendship and warmth. They had spent the day playing in the snow, chasing each other through the snowbanks, leaving little paw prints that shimmered in the moonlight. But now, with the night coming closer and the fire beginning to flicker lower, they all felt the pull of sleep. One by one, their eyes grew heavy, and the warmth of the fire made their bodies feel as though they were floating on a cloud. Little Rabbit let out a soft sigh and fell into a deep slumber, his dreams filled with images of soft snow and cozy burrows. Squirrel's breathing slowed, her tail twitching slightly as she dreamed of climbing the highest tree in the forest. Hedgehog's little paws tucked closer to his body, his dreams filled with quiet fields of snow and warm burrows. Fox's tail wrapped more tightly around him, his dreams taking him to snowy paths and hidden caves where he could rest peacefully. Owl's eyes closed, his head tucked gently beneath his wing as he settled into a quiet sleep, listening to the rhythm of the wind outside and the peaceful breaths of his friends. The fire burned lower, casting long, soft shadows across the room, and the forest outside remained still, wrapped in the embrace of winter. Slowly, the night fell, and the snow outside began to glitter under the light of the moon. The woodland friends slept soundly, each of them dreaming their peaceful dreams, while the snow continued to fall in a gentle, quiet rhythm. The world outside the den was frozen in time, but inside warmth, peace, and love filled the air, and the woodland friends rested, surrounded by the magic of winter and the comfort of each other's presence. The snowy nap of the woodland friends was one of perfect peace, a beautiful moment where the world slowed down, the snow fell softly, and the forest whispered lullabies to those who slept within it.